Princess Era stood alone on the balcony of the royal palace. The 3 moons of Luminara shone down on her, making her skin glow brighter than usual. She tried to stop the glow, but could not. Her body always betrayed her this way when she felt strong emotions. "Your Highness, it is time." Nari, her only loyal servant, gently touched her arm. "The grand selection ceremony will begin soon." Era nodded and turned toward her mobility chair. The sleek device was beautiful, made of the finest metals and crystals from across the stellar dominion. But to the royal family, it was a mark of shame. A princess should not need help to walk. "Do you think Father will finally recognize me today, Nari?" Era asked as they moved through the grand hallways. Nari's eyes dropped to the floor. "I hope so, Your Highness." The grand hall was filled with nobles from every planet in the Dominion. They wore their finest clothes and jewelry. As Era entered in her chair, the whispers began. "There she is, the glowing cripple. How sad for King Dojin to have such a daughter. Such a shame. Her mind is brilliant, but her body is broken." Era pretended not to hear. She had heard these whispers all her life. Today was different. Today she would show them all that her value came from her mind, not her legs. King Dojin sat on his crystal throne. His face was stern as Era approached. Next to him stood her younger brother, Prince Tahoe, tall and perfect in every way. "Father, I have completed my research," Era said, her voice steady despite her fear. "My theory on interstellar energy transfer could change everything. We could travel between stars in days instead of months." She handed him a data crystal containing years of her work. King Dojin looked at it, but did not take it. "Today is not about science, daughter. Today it is about the future of our kingdom." His voice was cold. The hall grew quiet. King Dojin stood up and addressed the crowd. "For 10,000 years, the royal bloodline of Luminara has been perfect. Our DNA has been kept pure. Our bodies have been strong. This is why we rule the stellar dominion." His eyes fell on Era, and she felt smaller than ever before. "But sometimes mistakes happen." The crowd gasped. Era's glow intensified, showing her shame to everyone. "My first child was born flawed. Her body produces an unusual glow that cannot be fixed. Her legs cannot carry her without help. These physical defects are a sign that she cannot carry our bloodline forward." Era's heart beat faster. This was not about her research. This was not her chance to prove herself. This was her public rejection. "Therefore, as king, I declare Princess Era unfit for succession to the throne." The nobles nodded in agreement. Some looked sad, but most seemed pleased. Prince Tahoe tried to hide his smile. "Furthermore," King Dojin continued, "to protect our genetic purity, Princess Era will be exiled to Earth, a primitive planet recently brought into our dominion. She will serve as a distant diplomat, where her differences will not reflect poorly on us." The room spun around Era. Exile. To Earth. That was a punishment worse than death. Earth was known to have harsh gravity and a thick atmosphere that would cause her constant pain. "Father, please," she whispered, but he had already turned away. "The royal shuttle leaves tomorrow," he said, not looking at her. "You may take one servant and basic supplies. Nothing more." Nari's hand found Era's shoulder, steadying her. As they left the grand hall, the whispers followed them like shadows. That night, Era looked at her research one last time. Her theory could have changed everything. Now it would be forgotten, just like her. "Earth," she said to herself, "so far from everything I know." Her glow pulsed sadly in the darkness of her room. What she didn't know was that Earth would change her life in ways she could never imagine. The royal shuttle landed in a remote forest outside Seoul, South Korea. The door opened with a soft hiss, and cold air rushed in. Princess Era felt the heavy gravity of Earth pull at her body right away. It hurt. "Your Highness, please stay in your chair," Nari said, checking the readings on her scanner. "Earth's atmosphere is thicker than ours. The gravity is stronger too." Era nodded and gripped the arms of her mobility chair tightly. Even breathing took more effort here. The coordinates say our new home should be nearby, Neri said, looking at a small map device. The Dominion has prepared a small research station for our cover story. They moved slowly through the trees. Era's body began to glow brighter than ever before. It was not just from her emotions this time. Something in Earth's air made her bioluminescence react strongly. Blue-green light pulsed from her skin, lighting up the forest around them. "This is bad," Era whispered. "How can we blend in if I glow like this?" After an hour of difficult travel, they found the research station. It was a simple building made of local materials, nothing like the crystal palaces of Luminara. Inside, there were basic living quarters, a small lab, and Earth clothes waiting for them. "We are supposed to be foreign researchers studying space," Neri explained as she helped Ara change into the strange, heavy Earth clothes. They covered most of her glowing skin, but her face and hands still shone through. "These humans don't know about aliens yet?" Era asked. "Only their government knows about the Dominion. Regular humans think we are just visitors from another country." Era looked out the window at the unfamiliar trees and plants. "So far from home," she said quietly. Her chest felt tight with sadness. The next morning, there was a knock at their door. Neri opened it to find a tall, serious-looking human man. "Hello, I am Jinwoo," he said in a stiff voice. "The Korean government sent me to help you adjust." His eyes widened slightly when he saw Era's glowing face, but his expression quickly returned to neutral. "Thank you for coming," Neri said politely. "I am Neri, and this is Era." They had decided not to use her royal title on Earth. Jinwoo looked at Era's mobility chair with curiosity. "Your equipment is interesting, not like any wheelchair I've seen before." "It is from our country," Era said carefully. Her translator device helped her speak Korean, but finding the right words was still hard. "And your skin condition?" Jinwoo asked bluntly, pointing to her glow. Era felt her glow pulse brighter with embarrassment. "A rare genetic trait," she said, using the cover story they had prepared. Jinwoo nodded, but his eyes showed doubt. "I am an aerospace engineer. The government told me to assist you with your research and help you navigate our culture." He paused. "Though I think they really want me to watch you." His honesty surprised Ara. On Luminara, people hid their true thoughts behind pretty words. "Well, we have nothing to hide," Era said, trying to sound confident despite the obvious lie. Later that day, as Jinwoo showed them around the nearby town, Era felt the weight of Earth pressing down on her. Her body ached, and her chair struggled with the uneven paths. People stared at her glowing skin. Some pointed. Some whispered, "Just like home," she thought bitterly. That night, as Era looked at the unfamiliar stars from her window, she noticed something strange. Her glow seemed to respond to Earth's magnetic field, creating beautiful patterns across her skin. For a moment, she forgot her pain and watched the lights dance. "Maybe there is something special about this planet after all," she whispered to herself, not knowing that the human assigned to watch her was thinking the exact same thing about her. 1 week on Earth felt like a year to Era. Simple tasks that humans did without thinking were hard for her. The shopping trips with Jinwoo were the worst. "You want to pay for rice with your hand scanner?" Jinwoo asked, looking embarrassed as Era tried to scan her palm over the store's payment machine. "Is that not how you transfer credits?" Era asked, confused. Jinwoo sighed and pulled out something called cash to pay the waiting store clerk. "We'll work on Earth money tomorrow," he said quietly. Back at the research station, Era tried to study human customs on the computer Jinwoo had given her. But reading made her head hurt. Earth's internet was slow and simple compared to the knowledge systems of Luminara. "Neri, how can humans live like this?" Era asked as she struggled to make the Earth device called a microwave heater food. "Everything is so primitive. Yet they seem happy," Neri pointed out, looking through the window at children playing in the nearby park. They laugh more than our people do. The next day, Jinwoo took them to a local science center. Era stayed in her mobility chair, wearing a high-necked jacket and gloves to hide her glow. Still, her face caught attention. "What's wrong with her face?" a young human asked loudly, pointing at Ara. "Hana." "That's rude," the child's mother said, pulling her away. Era felt her glow pulse with shame. Some things were the same everywhere. Later, as they left the science center, a group of teenage boys noticed them. "Hey, glowy girl," one called out. "Are you radioactive or something?" Era kept her head down, but they followed. "What's with the fancy wheelchair? Too special to walk like normal people?" another boy mocked. Era had faced worse on Luminara, but it still hurt. She was about to turn away when Jinwoo stepped between her and the boys. "Leave now," he said in a cold voice that surprised Ara. Until now, he had seemed bored with his assignment to watch over them. "Or what?" the tallest boy challenged. Jinwoo pulled out his government ID card. "Or I report you for harassing foreign research scientists working with the Korean Aerospace Department." The boys backed away quickly, muttering apologies. On the drive home, Era turned to Jinwoo. "Thank you for helping me." He kept his eyes on the road. "They were being stupid. It had nothing to do with you." But Era saw a slight redness in his cheeks. He was embarrassed by his own kindness. That night, as Era and Nari ate dinner, Nari's communication device beeped. It was a secret message from a friend in the royal court on Luminara. "Bad news," Nari said, her face worried. "Your brother Prince Tao is telling everyone you were not just exiled but sent away for medical treatment. He claims your condition might be contagious." Era put down her food. "He wants people to forget me." "There's more," Nari said quietly. "The message says Earth was never meant to be a true ally of the Dominion. Your father plans to harvest Earth's resources once treaties are signed." Era felt cold. "Harvest? You mean take what they want and leave the planet ruined?" Nari nodded. "It has happened to other worlds before." Era moved to the window and looked out at the night sky. Somewhere up there was her home world, the place that had rejected her. Below her was Earth, a planet of people who stared at her strangeness, but who knew nothing of the danger coming from the stars. "I have to make a choice," Era whispered. "Stay silent and loyal to my people, or warn the humans and betray my own kind." Her glow reflected in the window glass, pulsing with her troubled heart. Jinwoo's small lab was nothing like the grand research centers on Luminara, but Era felt at home there. For the past 2 weeks, she had been showing him her work on energy transfer. Today, he stared at her equations with wide eyes. "This is impossible," he said, looking up from the papers. "If what you're showing me is real, it would solve our energy crisis forever." Era's glow brightened with pride. "The math is correct. I checked it many times." "But how did you think of this?" Jinwoo asked. "Even our best scientists haven't come close to this kind of energy model." Era hesitated. She couldn't tell him that Luminaran science was centuries ahead of Earth's. "I see patterns others don't," she said simply. Jinwoo nodded slowly. "Because of your condition, the way you glow." "Yes," Era admitted. "My body reacts to energy fields. I can see them like you see colors." For the first time since they met, Jinwoo smiled at her. Not a polite smile, but a real one that reached his eyes. "That's not a disability," he said. "That's a gift." Something warm grew in Era's chest. No one had ever called her condition a gift before. Later that week, Era noticed something strange. When she held certain Earth stones, her pain lessened. The constant ache from Earth's gravity eased. "These minerals seem to help me," she told Jinwoo, showing him the stones she had found near their research station. "Those are just common rocks," he said, but he looked thoughtful. "Maybe there are more powerful minerals that could help even more." The next day, Jinwoo took Era and Nari to an old mine in the mountains. "This place was abandoned years ago," he explained, "but it has many unusual mineral deposits." The mine was dark and cool. Era's glow lit their way better than the flashlights. As they went deeper, Era felt better with each step. "The pain is less here," she said with surprise. "Much less." They collected samples of different minerals. Era was so excited that she didn't notice the old wooden supports of the mine creaking around them. Suddenly, there was a loud crack. Dirt and rocks began to fall. "Cave in," Jinwoo shouted. "Get back." But it was too late. A wall of rock and dirt crashed down, blocking their way out. Nari was on the outside, but Era and Jinwoo were trapped inside. "Nari, can you hear us?" Era called through the rocks. "Yes, I'll get help." Nari's voice was faint. "Stay where you are." Jinwoo checked his phone. "No signal down here. We'll have to wait." Hours passed slowly. The air grew stale. Era's glow was the only light they had after the flashlight batteries died. "Tell me about Luminara," Jinwoo said suddenly. Era froze. "What?" "Your home. The place you and Neri come from. I know you're not just foreign researchers." Era's glow pulsed with fear. "How long have you known?" "Since the beginning," Jinwoo said calmly. "No human glows like you do. No human technology works like your chair. The government knew something was different about you, but they weren't sure what." Era sighed. "If we're going to die in this mine, I suppose the truth doesn't matter anymore." "We're not going to die," Jinwoo said firmly. "But yes, I'd like the truth." So Era told him about Luminara, about being a princess, about her exile. She spoke of the royal court's cruelty and her father's rejection. "All my life, I was told my body was wrong," she said, "that my glow was shameful." Jinwoo was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "My parents and sister died in a car crash when I was 20. I was driving." His voice was flat. "That's why I keep to myself. Why I took this job watching you. No one else wanted it." In the darkness of the mine, surrounded by rocks that eased her physical pain, Era felt another kind of pain ease too. The pain of having no one who understood. 3 days after the mine rescue, Era and Jinwoo sat in the lab, testing the minerals they had found. The door burst open as Neri rushed in, her face pale with worry. "A Luminaran ship has entered Earth's orbit," she said, her voice shaking. "They're sending a delegation down. They say it's for diplomatic talks." Era's glow flashed with fear. "Did they say who is coming?" "Your cousin, Hyun." Era closed her eyes. Of all the people her father could have sent, Hyun was among the worst. He had always been jealous of Era's intelligence, even while he mocked her disability. "Who is Hyun?" Jinwoo asked, looking between them. "My cousin. He hates me," Era said simply. "And if he's here, it's not just for diplomacy." The next day, news reports showed the Luminaran ship landing near Seoul. Earth leaders welcomed the alien visitors, not knowing their true plans. The humans were excited about their first official contact with aliens. "We must stay hidden," Era told Jinwoo. "If Hyun finds me, he'll take me back to Luminara for punishment. I've broken our laws by telling you our secrets." But hiding was not possible. 2 days later, a sleek black car pulled up to their research station. Cousin Hyun stepped out, wearing human clothes that couldn't hide his Luminaran features, the slight shimmer to his skin, the unusual eyes. "Princess Era," he said with a cold smile when she opened the door. "How lovely to see you thriving on this primitive planet." Era gripped the handles of her mobility chair tightly. "I'm no longer a princess, Hyun. Why are you here?" Hyun walked into the station like he owned it, looking around with disgust. "Officially, to establish trade agreements with these humans." He leaned closer to her. "Unofficially, to assess their defenses and resource deposits." Era felt sick. "Where is my father? Why didn't he come himself?" "King Dojin is very ill," Hyun said, examining his perfect nails. "Your brother Prince Taho will soon take the throne. And his first act will be to begin the harvest of Earth." "Harvest?" Jinwoo's voice came from the doorway. He had heard everything. Hyun turned, surprised to see a human. Well, well, what have we here? Has the defective princess made a pet of a local? Era moved between them. This is Jinwoo. He's a scientist working with me. Working with you? Hyun laughed. On what? Teaching these monkeys our technology. His face hardened. That would be treason, cousin. I've done nothing wrong, Era said firmly. Perhaps, but I could still tell these humans exactly what you are. A rejected, disabled princess sent away in shame. Hyun smiled cruelly. How would your new friends feel about that deception? After Hyun left, Jinwoo stared at Era. His face showed anger and betrayal. Harvest Earth. That's what your people plan to do, he demanded. Take our resources and leave us with nothing. I didn't know until recently, Era said, her glow dimming with shame. I swear it. What else haven't you told me? Jinwoo paced the room. All that talk in the mine about understanding each other. Was that just lies too? No. Era reached for him, but he stepped back. Everything I told you about myself was true, except that your people plan to destroy mine. Jinwoo grabbed his jacket. I need to think. I need time away from all of this. As the door closed behind him, Era felt more alone than ever before. Her own people wanted to use her against Earth. The humans would see her as an enemy once they knew the truth. And now Jinwoo, the only person who had ever seen value in her difference, was walking away. Neri put a gentle hand on Era's shoulder. What will we do now, Your Highness? Era watched through the window as Jinwoo's car drove away. I don't know, Neri. For the first time in my life, I truly don't know. 3 days passed with no word from Jinwoo. Era barely ate or slept. She sat by the window, watching the road, hoping to see his car. Your glow is fading, Neri said with worry. You must take care of yourself. What does it matter now? Era asked. Hyun knows where we are. Earth will soon be harvested. And Jinwoo. She couldn't finish the sentence. On the 4th day, as rain fell outside, there was a knock at the door. Neri opened it to find Jinwoo standing there, soaking wet. May I come in? He asked quietly. Era's glow brightened instantly at the sight of him. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Jinwoo sat across from her, his hands clasped tightly together. I've been thinking about everything, he said. About your people, about Earth, about you. And? Era asked, afraid of his answer. I need to know everything, he said. The complete truth. No more secrets. So Era told him everything. How her disability gave her unique abilities to see energy patterns. How her scientific theories could revolutionize space travel. How she believed her people were wrong to view different bodies as defective. My glow lets me see things others can't, she explained. That's how I developed my energy transfer theory. I can actually see how energy moves and changes. Jinwoo leaned forward, his anger from days ago replaced by curiosity. Could you show me? Era dimmed the lights in the room and let her natural glow increase. She moved her hands through the air, and her bioluminescence followed in beautiful patterns. I'm tracking the magnetic fields around us, she explained. On Luminera, this glow is seen as shameful. Here on Earth, it's actually stronger and more useful. It's beautiful, Jinwoo said softly. They spent hours talking. Jinwoo explained how Era's energy theories could be modified to create a shield around Earth, a defense system against Luminaran ships. We could protect Earth without weapons, he said excitedly, using your science to defend, not destroy. As they worked, Era noticed Jinwoo studying her mobility chair. What are you thinking? She asked. Earth's atmosphere and gravity hurt you, he said. But what if we could fix that? Over the next week, Jinwoo combined human technology with parts from Era's spare equipment. He worked day and night, stopping only when his hands shook from exhaustion. Finally, he called Era to his workshop. It's ready, he said, revealing a new mobility device. It looked sleeker than her royal chair, with glowing blue lines running through it. "What is it?" Era asked, touching it carefully. "It creates a small field around you that reduces Earth's gravity pull. It also filters the air you breathe to be more like luminaries." Jinwoo looked nervous. "At least, that's what it should do. I can't be sure until you try it." With Nari's help, Era moved from her old chair to the new one. As soon as she sat down, she felt the difference. The constant pain eased. Her breathing became easier. Tears filled her eyes. "It works," she whispered. "The pain is almost gone." Jinwoo smiled with relief. "I wanted to help you feel at home here," he said simply. Era looked at him with new understanding. On Luminara, no one had ever tried to ease her pain or adapt to her needs. They had expected her to change, to somehow become normal. But this human had changed the environment instead, adapting it to fit her. "Why did you do this for me?" she asked. "After everything you learned about my people." Jinwoo's answer changed everything. "Because you're not your people," he said. "You're Era, and Era is worth helping." In that moment, with rain falling outside and her glow lighting the room, Era felt something new and fragile growing between them, something she had never expected to find on this distant planet. News reports showed more Luminaran ships entering Earth's orbit. The human governments were calling it a historic moment of interplanetary friendship. Only Era, Nari, and Jinwoo knew the truth. "My brother will not wait much longer," Era said, watching the reports with worry. "Once he takes the throne, the harvest will begin." Jinwoo paced the room. "We need more time to finish the defense system, and we need the government to believe us about the real Luminaran plans." "They won't believe us," Era said sadly. "Who would take the word of an exiled alien over official diplomats?" Jinwoo stopped pacing. "They might believe a princess." Era looked up sharply. "What?" "You're still a royal by birth," Jinwoo explained. "Even if your father rejected you, your royal DNA gives you standing. If you officially claim diplomatic status, the Earth governments would have to listen." "But I was stripped of my title," Era reminded him. "Earth doesn't know that," Jinwoo said. "And even Hyun called you princess when he was here. Your exile was political, not legal." Nari nodded slowly. "He's right, Your Highness. By Luminaran law, only death removes royal blood status." Era thought about this. "Even if I claim my title, I have no protection. Hyun could simply take me back to Luminara for punishment." Jinwoo sat down beside her and took her hand. His face looked serious, but also nervous. "There is a way," he said quietly. "If you had formal ties to Earth, if you were a citizen." "How could I become a citizen so quickly?" Era asked. Jinwoo took a deep breath. "By marriage." The room went completely silent. Era's glow pulsed wildly with surprise. "Marriage," she finally whispered. "To whom?" "To me," Jinwoo said, his voice steady despite the redness in his cheeks. "It would give you legal protection. As my wife, you would have rights that even the Luminarans would have to respect under the diplomatic agreements they've already signed." Era tried to process what he was saying. "You would marry me to protect Earth." "That's one reason," Jinwoo admitted. His eyes met hers, but not the only reason. Era's glow brightened. "What is the other reason?" Instead of answering with words, Jinwoo gently touched her glowing cheek. "In the short time I've known you, I've seen more courage and kindness than I've seen my whole life. You were rejected for being different, but your difference is beautiful. Your mind is amazing. Your heart is good." He paused. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Era." Tears made Era's glow shimmer. No one had ever called her beautiful before. No one had ever wanted her for herself. "This isn't just strategy?" she asked, afraid to hope. "Protection is part of it," Jinwoo said honestly. "But I wouldn't offer marriage if I didn't care for you deeply." Era looked at Nari, who had tears in her eyes too. "What do I do?" Era asked her old friend. "Follow your heart, Your Highness," Nari said softly. Era turned back to Jinwu. She thought of life on Luminara, where she had never belonged. She thought of Earth, where one human had seen value in her difference, where one human had eased her pain instead of demanding she change. "Yes," Era said, her glow brighter than ever before. "I will marry you, Jinwu." He smiled and pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring with a small blue stone, one of the minerals from the mine that had eased her pain. "I had this made for you," he said, slipping it onto her finger. "The stone connects to the systems in your chair to help regulate your comfort." Era stared at the ring. Even his gift was thoughtful, designed for her unique needs. The news of their engagement spread quickly. Human officials were curious about this sudden development. Cousin Hyun was furious. "You cannot marry this creature," he shouted when he burst into their lab the next day. "It's against our laws." "I am Princess Era of the Royal House of Luminara," Era said, sitting tall in her chair. "And I choose Earth as my home. I choose Jinwu as my husband." For the first time in her life, Era felt truly powerful, not because of her title, but because she had found someone who loved her exactly as she was. The wedding was small and quick. Just Era, Jinwu, Nari, and a government official who asked no questions thanks to special papers Jinwu had obtained. Era wore a simple white dress that covered most of her glow. Jinwu couldn't stop smiling. 2 days later, news broadcasts showed a massive Luminaran ship entering Earth's orbit, larger than all the others. "That's the royal vessel," Era said, her face pale. "Only the king or his heir would travel in that ship." "Your brother is coming," Nari whispered. The next morning, their small home was surrounded by black cars. Men in suits knocked on the door. "Princess Era," one asked when Jinwu opened the door. "Your presence is requested at the International Diplomatic Center. Your brother, Prince Tahoe of Luminara, wishes to see you." Jinwu stood tall. "My wife will attend only if I accompany her." The man looked surprised but nodded. "Of course, sir." As they drove to Seoul, Ara gripped Jinwu's hand tightly. "Tahoe is dangerous," she warned. "More cruel than even our father." "We have the defense plans," Jinwu reminded her. "And you have the right to speak as a princess." The diplomatic center was filled with officials from many countries. At the center of the room stood Prince Tahoe, tall and perfect, his skin with the faint shimmer of Luminaran royalty. The room went quiet as Era entered in her mobility chair. Tahoe's face showed disgust when he saw her. "Ah, my poor sister," he said loudly. "We've come to rescue you from your exile. Father is very ill and wishes to see you before he dies." Era knew it was a lie. "How kind of you, brother. But I have made my home here now. With my husband." She gestured to Jinwu. Gasps filled the room. Tahoe's eyes narrowed. "Husband, you married this creature." Tahoe looked at Jinwu like he was dirt, this primitive being from a backward planet. "I did," Era said firmly. "And as a royal by blood, I have the right to choose my partner." Tahoe laughed coldly. "A royal? You? Father stripped you of your title. You are nothing but a medical oddity that should have been fixed before birth." The room was so quiet now that even breathing seemed loud. Era felt her old shame rising, but then felt Jinwu's hand on her shoulder, steady and warm. "I am Princess Era," she said, her voice growing stronger. "My body may be different, but my mind is royal. And I have discovered things about energy that even our best scientists don't know." She activated controls on her new chair. A holographic display appeared in the air, showing her energy transfer theories. "This is what I developed while in exile. This could change space travel forever." The Earth officials looked amazed. Even some of the Luminaran officers with Tahoe seemed impressed. "And there's more," Era continued. She pulled out documents that showed the Luminaran plans to harvest Earth. "This is why my brother is really here. Not for diplomacy, but for conquest." Chaos erupted in the room. Earth officials shouted questions. Tahoe's face twisted with rage. "Guards, take her," he commanded. 2 Luminaran officers moved toward Ara, but they stopped when Jinwu and several Earth scientists stepped in front of her. "She is under Earth protection," Jinwu said, "and these Luminaran officers know she speaks the truth." One of the Luminaran officers, an older woman, stepped forward. "Prince Tao, I cannot follow this order. Princess Era's evidence is clear." "Traitors," Tahoe shouted. "You would believe this defective creature over your prince." The officer removed her helmet, revealing a face with a scar across one eye. "Some of us have always admired the princess who saw beauty in difference, who believed that all bodies have value." Other officers nodded. Some also had small differences, unusual eye colors, slightly different features that would be considered flaws on Luminara. Era stared in wonder. She had never known there were others who shared her views, who had suffered under the rigid standards of Luminaran perfection. "You cannot stop what is coming," Tahoe hissed, backing toward the door. "Father has already signed the harvest order." "Then we will stop it ourselves," Era said, her glow burning bright with determination. The week after the confrontation was a blur of meetings and decisions. Prince Tahoe had returned to his ship in anger, threatening war. But something unexpected happened on Luminara. "Your Highness." Nari burst into the room one morning, holding her communication device. "News from home." Era and Jinwu looked up from their work on the defense system. "A group of nobles has taken action against Prince Tahoe," Nari said excitedly. "They showed the royal court your energy theories and proof of Tahoe's lies about you. They'd been secretly supporting you for years." Era couldn't believe it. "Who would support me?" "Scientists, artists, teachers, people who valued minds over bodies. They've been waiting for a chance to change our world." Nari's eyes filled with tears. "And there's more. Your father is asking to speak with you." That afternoon, King Dojin's face appeared on a secure video call. He looked old and tired, his once perfect features now lined with age. "Daughter," he said, his voice weak, "I have done you a terrible wrong." Era sat very still, her glow pulsing slowly. "Yes, father, you have." "I was mistaken," he admitted. "Your difference was not weakness. It was simply different." He coughed. "Your theories on energy transfer have opened the eyes of many, including mine. Too late." Era felt Jinwu's hand on her shoulder, giving her strength. "Tahoe has been removed from succession," the king continued. "His plans for Earth have been cancelled. The harvest will not happen." Relief flooded through Era. Earth was safe. "Before I pass the crown to my successor, I wish to formally recognize your marriage to the Earthman," King Dojin said, "and to acknowledge that I was wrong to exile you." Era had dreamed of hearing those words for so long, but now they didn't matter as much as she thought they would. "Thank you, father," she said simply. "I hope Luminara will change its views on physical differences." "It has already begun," the king said. "Your courage started something important." 1 month later, Era stood beside Jinwu at the opening of the first Earth Luminaran Research Institute. Scientists from both worlds would work together on Era's energy theories. "Princess Era," a reporter called out, "how does it feel to go from exile to leading this historic project?" Era smiled. "I am not just a princess now. I am a scientist, a wife, and a bridge between worlds." Her glow brightened. "And I am proud of my difference, not ashamed of it." Later that evening, Era and Jinwu stood on the roof of their new home, looking at the stars. The Luminaran ships were leaving Earth's orbit, returning home with messages of peace, not conquest. "Your father sent this," Jinwu said, handing Era the small box. Inside was the royal seal of Luminara, now modified to include a symbol of Earth. "He said it represents the new alliance," Jinwu explained, "and your place in both worlds." Era closed the box. "My place is here now," she said, "with you." They prepared for a special ceremony that evening, a private celebration of their marriage that would include both Korean and Luminaran traditions. Nari had helped arrange everything. As Era put on a beautiful dress that didn't hide her glow but enhanced it, she thought about her journey. From a rejected princess to a respected scientist. From shame about her body to pride in her difference. From loneliness to love. Jinwoo entered the room, wearing traditional Korean clothes. His eyes widened when he saw her. "You're beautiful," he said simply. "I've never felt beautiful before I met you," Era admitted. "On Luminara, I was always wrong, always broken." Jinwoo took her hands. "You were never broken, just different, and difference is what makes the universe interesting." As they joined their friends for the ceremony, Era's glow was brighter than ever before. She had been scorned and abandoned by her people. But here, with Jinwoo, she had found acceptance, she had found purpose, she had found love. And that was worth more than any throne in the galaxy.